But if you could see inside my mind,
You talking to me?
Thank you.
For those of you just tuning in, welcome to Suicide Nights Conversations, the show in which I, your host, Kate Koenig, musician and writer and mentally ill person, Kate Koenig, interview comedians and performers about the topic of living with mental illness. Tonight's guest is comedian and writer and mentally ill person, Maggie Lalley. So how are you doing with the quarantine?
Honestly, Kate, I mean, I gotta say, I think I'm thriving.
Really? That's
Yes.
such a disappointing response.
Really? I know. You're like, want me to be like, yeah. But I have to be honest, I think I'm doing well. I think I'm having, I'm doing the artist way. Have you done
word.
the art? Yeah. And I'm kind of like attacking some demons and like going real deep with myself. Yeah, I feel very creative at the moment. And I like don't want quarantine to end. Like I don't want to go back to reality.
You know, I can actually relate to that. I've actually been pretty creative myself. I've been writing a lot of new music, but I gotta say, the first 5 months, I wanted to kill myself.
Oh my God. So Kate, the first 5 months, right?
No, the first 5 weeks.
I know. I was like, it's only been a few weeks, Kate. You're like, so we've been in this for 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
5 months, dead. Oh my God, so funny. I was like, whoa, she really is not doing well. That's so funny. Oh my God. Well, I have to say the first few weeks I was like drinking at like 11 a.m. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like all day and like smoking weed, crying, watching Titanic, like freaking out, having multiple, mental breakdowns or whatever. And then I was like, you know what? I really got to like get my shit together. So I was kind of like, okay, I'm not going to drink as much, but this kind of, it's sort of like I blossomed very slowly, but eventually I got out of that like very depressing phase and then entered this new kind of sober phase of alleged creativity. I mean, who knows what I'm putting out there, but
Right. Yes, I know that feeling. Yeah, I actually I'm super sober. I'm sober, which is, yeah, I think actually it was my bipolar that really got me in the rooms. I'm not supposed to
hear you.
I'm not supposed to.
No, you know what? I was in AA for 4 years.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, when I was younger, from 18 to 22.
Whoa.
Yeah, and I know exactly what you're talking about in terms of, I think it was the bipolar that was like leading me towards this need to be sober.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily like a huge, like, I don't identify as an alcoholic. I really don't. But I think the emotional issues can also be like very much healed by the 12 steps, which I don't know if you're doing the 12 steps, but that's why I went into AA, because I was like, I have to like figure this out and get my emotions kind of on track. And I actually believe that I was kind of manic during a lot of my sobriety because I was like so spiritual. Like I wasn't really sleeping. I was like convinced that I was like a vehicle for the Lord. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, I am an angel. Hello. Like,
remember I told you I was a prophet.
Between me and the seraphim in the sky, absolutely no separation.
No.
So I think I was a little manic, but And actually, I'm working on a show about bipolar disorder,
Oh, word.
a musical. So I'm excited about that. And that's a little portion in there is like the manic AA phase.
I have this thing where like long periods of not drinking and then suddenly drinking has triggered manic states for me.
Yeah.
Or amplified them. Like one time in college, like I think I spent most of the summer not really drinking that much. And the first weekend back at school, I drank and then I jumped on the back of a city bus to ride it like Indiana Jones.
This is so great.
And I fell off.
Wow.
Because it really is a pretty hard thing to do.
Yeah.
So I learned, and I got a concussion.
Oh my God, amazing.
And then I went back to school like the next day wearing an eye patch, and
Wow.
I told my professors that I'd gotten into a car accident.
This is crazy. I mean, okay, so when I was in college, like I'm absolutely certain I was manic. For the first, well, I got kicked out pretty immediately. I was fairly manic. I was like pretty promiscuous. You know, this is a huge part of like being manic is like, yeah, let me walk down the halls and find someone to bang. You know what I mean? It's like, okay,
Yeah.
this is psycho. And then I was found like naked against a tree, like in a blackout or something.
Oh no.
And then I remember is like flipping off the security guards being like, fuck you, like get the fuck out of me. Like don't fucking, you know, like this kind of thing. And then I had a friend visit me. So I definitely, the alcohol exacerbates the manic state,
Yeah.
but for absolutely 100%. But I had a friend visit me and then I was feeding her alcohol. Absolutely like, please let's get drunk together. She was visiting as a prospective student. Okay. She blacked out. Ambulance came, took her to the hospital. I go to the hospital with her. Okay. And I bust in to her stomach pump, right? She's getting her stomach pumped. I bust in and the doctors are like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I got this. And this is psycho, but I took my 2 fingers and I was like, you just got to make her throw up. And I tried to put my fingers down her throat to make her throw up. I was so hammered.
Oh my God.
And her mom showed up and was like, what did you give my daughter? She was like, did you give my daughter ecstasy? I was like, no, I didn't.
Who was your least favorite therapist? And
Oh
why?
my God, this question is so excellent. I'm freaking out. This is great. Okay. My least favorite therapist. I've had so many, by the way. Oh my God. I've been in therapy since I was like 17
Oh shit.
and got diagnosed with depression at 17, major depression right away. But I like, they didn't catch the bipolar. And I was like, there's no way I'm depressed because I'm happy so much of the time. And I'm like literally maniacally happy to the point where like, I think I'm a star, you know?
Yeah.
What was I saying? My worst therapist. Oh my God. This guy, we literally got into a fight, Kate. Like straight up. I went to see this guy and I'm telling you, he was like falling asleep during our sessions. Anything I would say, I'd be like, you know, I'm really upset about so-and-so. And then he'd be like, what about your dad? And I'm like, fuck off. Like literally not everything's about my dad. Okay. So, anyway, so we're sitting there, we're sitting across from each other and he goes, do you like me? And I was like, do I like you? Are you kidding me? Like, what kind of question is this? And he's like, do you like me? And I was like, to be honest, no, I don't. I don't like you at all. And you know what? I want my $30 back. It was a sliding scale.
Oh my God.
I was like, I want my $30 back. And he was like, no. And I was like, give me my fucking $30 right. And I was standing. Now, again, like this could have been my fault. Like really, I was acting a little out of control. But anyway, I was probably like 24. And anyway, so I was like, give me my $30. And he's like, no. And I'm like, I will call the police and have you arrested if you don't give me my $30. And he was like, all right. And then he gave me the $30.
Oh my God.
And I was like, on my way. But so he was the worst. I've also had a therapist who was like convinced that as long as I did voiceover work, I would be happy. And I was like, what are you saying?
That's
She's
weird.
like, you should voice Yu-Gi-Oh cartoons. And I was like, what are you talking about?
I had a therapist who just like never believed me. And I was like, I came in and I was like she literally thought I was a millennial who was just like, oh, I think I'm depressed because I heard the word. People are saying it now, so I think I'm that. Like, she thought,
Oh my God.
I feel like a therapist can only offer you as like their perception of you. Like the real work that they're able to give you is however they perceive themselves and however they perceive you and however they perceive your relationship, which is actually very limited to like who they are.
It's so true. It's like, and also I think that they sometimes can't compartmentalize their relationships with different clients. So they all string together. So it's like, the way I feel about X is going to translate into the way I feel about Y, X and Y being the clients or whatever. So it's like, oh, if X is having this problem, then maybe Y would benefit from the solution I'm offering to X. It's like, no, we're different people, you know? So I don't know. It's just, I feel like 90% of therapists are completely incompetent.
There's such a thing called a borderline empath.
Oh, I love this. Tell me everything. Oh my God.
Well, so basically, like, you're a child who grows up in an abusive household, and your parents look to you to serve their emotional needs. Because they're, second generation abusers, or whatever. So they look to the child to fulfill their emotional needs. So then you become the caretaker as a child, and so you become hypersensitive to the needs of other people around you, and hypersensitive to reading like cues and whatever, but you also lose yourself into that person. So it engenders this like extreme codependency. Like, how on Parks and Rec, Rashida Jones's character takes on the personality of every boyfriend?
Yes,
like
totally.
When she's dating Chris, she becomes a health nut, and when she's dating the cowboy dude, she suddenly is like a cowgirl.
Right.
Yeah, so I consider myself to be like a borderline empath because I'm just so hyper conscious of what everybody's doing all the time.
Same. Oh my God, it kills me.
And I feel like I can have full conversations with people without even talking to them.
Yeah, totally. I get it. Yeah. Well, a lot of people, but that's a gift though. So you shouldn't feel bad about that. I hope you don't feel bad about it.
Well, it's just hard because people want you to like prove it to them. Like you get gaslit all the time.
Oh yeah. Well, what do you mean by getting gaslit? Like someone doesn't believe that you're that empathetic, or?
Well, someone doesn't believe that you know like how a person feels.
Right.
Because you get told all the time that you can't possibly know that. And it's true because it can become arrogant and invasive and inaccurate and limited. So It's like, I'm not God, I don't actually know 100% what everybody's feeling, but at the same.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So the reason why I was bringing it up was because my last therapist was that way too, and he got it like 100%. Like, I never had to explain that like this person is acting in these patterns and therefore, and then guess what, they acted this way, then now I'm just
right.
But like,
oh yeah, well here's the thing, it's like, I have this person in my family that I'm like convinced doesn't like me, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I know I'm right. It's not like I'm like, oh, they don't like me. It's like, no, it's obvious because I'm intuitive in that way, in the sense that like I can pick up on these emotional cues, these silent cues or whatever. It's not like that, the greatest skill or whatever. I think it's a curse because some people go through the world and they're totally unaware and they're just like completely oblivious to like all of these things going on underneath the surface. And I kind of like want to be that person a little bit because that sounds like just such a free ride. You know what I mean? In November, December, I went off my meds and I was like, oof, this was a huge mistake. But I was like convinced that I wasn't creative enough. And I was like, wasn't creative when I went off them. That's for sure.
You weren't taking lithium, were you?
No. I was taking Wellbutrin and Abilify.
I'm on Abilify. I have Abilify.
High five, girl. Abilifying. Hello. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was like so against medication for years because I remember when I got diagnosed with major depression when I was 17. She was like, why don't you go on Lexapro or something? And I was like, no, I'm not crazy or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Convinced that she was overreacting.
Yeah.
Now I know she was not, because my 20s were literally such a shit show. Literally could not face how depressed I was at certain points.
Mm.
And then I just had such a breaking point, like in 2019. Yeah, last year. I'm like, yeah, so long ago, 2019.
It feels that way.
It does, right?
Remember 5 months.
5 months. That is so great. Oh my god. The first 5 months of quarantine.
The first 5 months, I wanted to kill myself.
That was so hilarious. Oh my god. I'm gonna remember that. But yeah, I had such a breaking point where I was like, to the point where I was like just crying in the streets and like looking for like ways to hurt myself, like in a kind of manic, crazy way, and then like drinking heavily and just like shouting at people in the streets, like, what the fuck am I doing, right? And then I had such a breaking point, and then I finally saw the psychiatrist, and then he was like, yeah, I think you're bipolar, and you're gonna take Abilify. And then I felt pretty good, like kind of right away, I think. And then I was like, oh, I'm better. So then I went off them, and then I went, off the rails again. And then I was, in January of this year, I was like, I gotta go back on these. I just gotta go back on. So then I went back on, and now I feel okay. And now I'm thriving in the quar.